Okay, great, thank you.
I don't have an invoice for tonight. So can you come in my office at 8:30 tomorrow and fill it out? Because the woman who does payroll is gonna do payroll tomorrow.
Okay.
So I wanna make sure you see it. It's okay.
Oh, she good? Okay. Thanks.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. This meeting is being conducted in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. The Verona Board of Education passed a resolution at its meeting held on January 8th, 2013. The meeting set forth the schedule of its regular meetings, which resolution was within 7 days of passage. The schedule was sent to the Verona City Times, the Star Ledger, the Herald News, the Township of Verona, and the Verona Education Association. Postings of this meeting setting forth the time, location, and agenda were posted in each of Verona's 6 schools, the board office, and town hall. This posting was also sent to the above newspapers, all SCA presidents, and SCA liaisons. The Verona Board of Education operates under consent agenda format. Any board member has a right to have an item pulled to be voted upon or discussed separately. Copies of tonight's agenda and resolutions have been made available to the public present. Mr. Blau, Mr. Elliott?
Here.
Mr. Molino?
Here.
Mr. Enos?
Here.
Mr. Quattrucci?
Here. Okay, welcome to our final meeting of this school year. We are going to meet for the summer. We'll get to that at the end here. Tonight's meeting has a couple of presentations. Mr. Frisian is going to do a spring sports wrap-up. Mr. Galvachek will be here to introduce 2 new policies, or 2 updated policies and regulations for board dialogue. And then we get into the meat of the meeting where we'll review, potentially refine, and then when we go resolutions, approve our strategic plan. And from there, we'll be setting our annual goals for the year. Mr. Forte, as part of that, will also do a short presentation that highlights progress on current year's goals, which is something that we do every year. So with that, is there any public comment or question on anything on the agenda itself? Okay, let's do Mr. Frisian go first.
Good evening. This spring we fielded 15 teams, 8 varsity and 4 sub-varsity, and they were 163 boys and 132 girls for a total of 295 participants, including 122 athletes just for track alone. All conference, county, and state honors totaled 89, and we're still counting, waiting for the county and state honors to wrap up. That number for the year is up to 272 honors. In softball, Caroline Shively received first team all-conference honors as the team qualified for the state tournament once again. Baseball finished 500 and placed 4 players on the all-conference teams. Included in the wins were victories over Columbia, MKA, and a 3-1 defeat of Cedar Grove in the annual rivalry game at Yogi Berra Stadium. Their community service project entailed collecting baseball mitts and donating them to an organization called Pitch In for Baseball. The organization, located in Pennsylvania, collects the gloves and distributes them to inner-city baseball players. They collected and shipped approximately $1,200 worth of baseball gloves. Boys lacrosse started the season with a 3-0 record. with highlights including an 8-6 victory over Houghton and a 7-5 win over Nutley. At the end of April, the team was ranked number 6 in Group 1 and number 10 in Essex County, and Mike Perry received first team all-conference honors. Boys track had a strong showing this year with Tyler Kirkwood, Fernando Beltran, and Sean Degnan, all garnering first place all-conference honors. And also Chris Sweeney qualified for the meet of champions in the 400 hurdles. Girls track took third in the group section meet with the following athletes achieving first place finishes. Julia Ashley finished first in the Group 1 section in the 400 and the 800 meters. Melanie Egan was named first team all-conference selection for the 3200, and she won the Group 1 North 2 section race in was part of the relay team in the 3200. Christina Carlucci was named first team SEC Independence Division in the javelin, and Mary Beth Grun qualified for the meet of champions. Kelsey Adamante, Sarah Conboy, Emily Peterman, along with Julia Ashley, all took first place in the Group 1 North 2 3200 meter relay and in the All Group 1 championship. That's quite a feat among all Group 1 schools. Boys tennis once again was ranked in the county and grouped for 4 weeks. The team also advanced to the state semifinal with 4 players receiving all conference honors. The golf team finished in second place in the conference and in the conference tournament, that is, behind Seton Hall Prep. They finished with a 16-10 record with steady play from Frank Ferrari and Bobby Webline. In girls lacrosse, Casey Milmo, Haley Toll, Jackie Brosna, and Lauren Edney received first team all-conference honors, and Casey and Haley were also named to the all Essex County tournament team. There were also 4 girls chosen to the Academic All-American team. They are Lynn Keating, Haley Toll, Olivia Penna, Jackie Noyes, and Chloe Stripley. The team also won their second conference championship in their brief history, and as I call your name, please come forward to receive your certificate. Amanda Keating. Not here? Okay. Casey Milmo. Oh, Lynn Keating, I'm sorry. Sorry, Lynn. And Casey. Sorry, Lynn. Haley Toll. Lauren Edmund. Lauren? Gabby Matola? Lizzie Scandifio? Chloe Stripoli? Jackie Brosnan? Amelia Frizzy? Cole McConaughey? And Amanda McGuire. Last week, during the halftime of the Robeson All-Star Classic, Coach Lou Rassiopi was inducted into the Essex County Football Hall of Fame. So congratulations to Lou, and please come forward. Next, our head boys and girls tennis coach, Pat Shoney, is stepping down due to relocating. I'm going to ask Pat to come up here while I read her plaque. We had to get a big plaque because of all our accomplishments. Verona High School, with sincere appreciation, congratulates Patricia Shoney for 41 years of service and dedication to the Verona School District as a teacher and coach with the following outstanding accomplishments. Varsity boys and girls tennis from 2010 to 2013. Her boys tennis team won the state championship in 2010. Boys tennis also won the conference championship in 2012. Girls tennis won the state championship in 2012. She was the JV boys and girls tennis coach from 2004 to 2010. She was the varsity cheering fall and winter coach from 1978 to 1985. She was the freshman cheering fall and winter coach from 1973 to 77. The head varsity softball coach from 1973 to 75. And she developed and coached the gymnastics team from 1973 to 1977. Pat, on behalf of Verona High School and the athletic department, we're going to miss you. Bless you. Each year, the Super Essex Conference awards a trophy for outstanding athletic performance as totaled for championships and final placements in the team's respective divisions. This year, the Verona High School girls athletic teams finished first among some 40 schools in the conference or county, just nosing out second place Livingston High School by 0.8 of a point. In the past, we've been in contention in the state among all Group 1 schools, which is a feat in itself, but this award is against some schools that are more than 4 times our size. And when you compare a state championship to any county championship, a county championship to me always means more, especially for a small school, because you're going up against these Group 2, 3, and 4 schools. And so I congratulate all female student athletes and their coaches, and each of them deserves a piece of this award over to my right over here. I think the only cup that's bigger is the Stanley Cup I've seen. But congratulations again, that's a tremendous thing. Some other awards that student received this spring. Senior soccer and lacrosse player Ned Dedden was named the NJSIAA Scholar Athlete and will be a computer science major at the University of Washington. Dan Stryker and Amanda Langen were selected as the Essex County Scholar Athletes and attend the awards program at the Mayfair Farms. Amanda will attend Indiana University and Dan will attend Ramapo College. Both Alex Delaval and Kelsey Adamonte received the Maroon and White Award at last week's Sports Boosters banquet for perseverance, enthusiasm, toughness, and dedication to their sports. Alex will begin next fall at the University of Rhode Island, and Kelsey will attend the University of South Carolina. Also at last week's dinner, Haley Toll and Frank Greco received the Outstanding Athlete Awards. Haley will attend Syracuse University to study communications, and Frank will major in business and play football at Sacred Heart. The athletes graduating with the most varsity letters were Mary Beth Grund and Luke Stankowski. Mary Beth will attend Rider University, and Luke will attend the U.S. Coast Guard Academy. The vision of our department philosophy is to stress that sports are more than winning and losing. We consider team community service projects just as important as any championships. And we always should try to remember to help others less fortunate than ourselves. This year's charities designated by our teams received a total of $2,000. Some of those charities included Unico, breast cancer research, ALS research, St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, Coaches vs. Cancer, the Valerie Fund, and the girls lacrosse team here tonight, in conjunction with the Verona Women's Club, spent an evening serving dinner, conversing, and dancing with senior citizens. In closing, I wish to thank all those involved in the successes our teams enjoyed this year, from the board, administrators, staff, parents, athletes, coaches, my administrative assistant Maureen Dimmick, and our athletic trainer Jason Callow. Special thanks goes to Paul McDivitt in our maintenance department, along with the town shared services. Police Chief Doug Huber for providing security at events throughout the year, Chuck Molinaro and Gary Grasso and their crews for preparing our fields, and that especially goes for everything they did to prepare our baseball field for the county baseball semifinals and final this year. To be honest, when I got up here, I think it was for the semifinals early in the morning with them, it didn't look like we had a prayer to get the fields done, and within 3 hours you wouldn't have known there was a half a lake on the infield. So kudos to that crew. So thank you for your time tonight, and have a great summer. Thank you.
Ms. Galvachek on true policy and regulations. Oh, yes, we go.
Thank you. Yeah, I won't take that personally.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. My name is David Alberchuk. I'm the assistant principal of the high school. And I was one member of a committee that was tasked with taking a review of our current substance abuse policy, and specifically the 24/7, so-called 24/7 element to that policy. And if you're not familiar with the term 24/7 as it relates to the policy, our existing policy dictates that students are subject to disciplinary consequences when a charge or an offense has occurred on or off school grounds 24/7 hours of the day, 7 days a week throughout the year. The reason that I was asked to be part of a committee was that over the last several years there have been challenges to this policy, similar policies that exist in other districts throughout the state. And a couple of years ago, I believe it was in January, February of 2012, there was an ad hoc committee that the board, Mr. Verona, Mr. Elliott headed, and they invited a lot of stakeholders from the community to be a part of this process, to take a look at our current policy and see how it fits. And some of the, we had administrators, teachers, parents, law enforcement representatives, the student assistance counselor, pretty much any stakeholder you can think of was represented on that committee. And again, it was a fact-finding initiative to see where people stood in terms of the 24/7 policy, but at the same time with an awareness that we might be needing to change our policy in that the courts were ruling against the legality of the school district being punitive for some certain off-campus substance abuse offenses. And so, fast forward to within the last 6-8 months, actually I think starting about in July of 2012, the courts affirmed that essentially a Board of Ed cannot impose consequences for off-campus behavior unless it can be proven that there's a substantial interference with the orderly operations of the school. So, for example, if a student is caught with possession of a beer on a Saturday night, it may be very difficult to automatically say, yes, without question, that charge, that offense will have an impact on the orderly operation of the school. And in most cases, it would be probably very difficult to say that with certainty. And so, and furthermore, the Supreme Court ultimately refused to hear an appeal that affirmed similarly that a district or Board of Education cannot have a policy in which a student is given a consequence, is found in violation of a drug or substance use policy. They cannot have that extracurricular activities and things like that taken away. So basically, in a nutshell, the school cannot impose consequences unless it can be proven, or it can be determined rather, there is a substantial nexus to the orderly operations of the school. And as Mr. Forte has pointed out in conversations I've had with him, this isn't anything new. The courts have just affirmed what they've been affirming in the last 40 years, and that is we're not necessarily responsible for things that happen off school grounds unless they impact the orderly operations of the school. And that's with the current HIV policy, the same thing. When things happen off school grounds, but they come into the building, that's when we do have jurisdiction over that. So that's some of the background. The committee that I'm a part of, Mr. Friesian was the chairperson of that committee. The other members were Mr. Freund, who's the assistant principal at HBW, and Mrs. Dana Lustig, who serves as our student assistance counselor. She's also the district's anti-bullying coordinator, as well as the high school anti-bullying building specialist. So we ultimately we've reviewed policy. We had some challenges along the way. Some of those challenges were just logistic. We're not lawyers. We're not, versed in a lot of things. Policy is not our number one area of expertise. So we did our best to create policy, but we did run what we've submitted through Strauss Esme, with whom the district contracts regarding policy to ensure compliance with legal standards at this time, and they've assured us that the policy that we put forward is within our legal grounds to do that. The bottom line is that we have removed language that automatically imposes a consequence for an off-campus violation. We did keep in there consequences for off-campus distribution of substances, illegal substances, and or the intent to distribute illegal substances, because the committee believed that that would in fact have a substantial impact on the orderly operation of schools. If someone is potentially distributing, then how could it not potentially reach into the schools? And so that language has stayed, but we have removed the language that takes out automatic consequences for off-campus substance use or possession. Just to be clear, we maintain, every district in the state maintains through the memorandum of agreement with the police that there is ongoing dialogue with police departments and schools. And so if a student is, that information will continue coming to the school. And regardless of whether or not the district, once we get that information, we'll take it. We're not going to make any assumptions. We'll have conversations with police. We're recommending, rather, we anticipate continued conversations with police, continued analysis, and to determine whether or not a student should be subject to discipline. If not, we are going to continue to maintain that through the Student Assistance Counselor's Office, that we at least offer substance abuse services to that student and the family. That at a minimum, the Student Assistance Counselor will reach out to the parent, recommend the child undertakes a substance abuse assessment through a medical professional, that if there are recommendations that are if there are recommendations for treatment, that we would provide support services during that process. So from that end, 24/7 or not, we will continue to offer those services for any student who may be at risk for substance abuse issues. So, ultimately, we have submitted 4 documents for the board to review. Policy 5530, which is a substance abuse policy, as well as the accompanying regulation for 5530, as well as we made some modifications to the pupil discipline / code of conduct policy, and are also at the same time recommending the introduction of a regulation 5600. At this time, we don't seem to have a regulation for 5600 for the student code of conduct, and so we're recommending, we made some recommendations in that area. So without getting into, I'm not, if anyone wants any further information and any questions, you have to answer them at this time.
I do have not so much a question, but I guess it's a question. You have already mentioned that you retain discipline on a on-campus or off-campus incident, the sale and distribution of legal drugs.
Correct.
And you said that you were making the automatic link that there would be an impact on students. And have we asked anybody whether that is within our purview to do? I mean, I think you said you passed this by Strauss.
We did, right. We did.
And their response was
They didn't, that was not a red flag for them.
okay. Did we didn't get an opinion from our attorney on that? I'm in favor of leaving it in, by the way. I'm not looking to take it
Oh,
out.
I sure want to make it.
I'm in favor of leaving it in. I just want to try and be on safe ground as possible that that we're automatically making the link between sale and possession and the impact on our school. I'm fine with it.
And in fact, our committee is recommending the addition of language that includes the intent to distribute, because we felt that was equally relevant to the, because a lot of times with a charge like that, it pertains to
Well, again,
quantity of possession.
You did use the word charge also.
Mhm.
And I remember in the commissioner's decision on Rampolinian Hills, that they did talk about, even though they didn't get into the constitutionality of doing something with a person who's charged and not convicted, they never addressed it specifically, because they said that they found other fault with the policy before they even got to that argument, so
Right.
why take that argument? Which may be in our favor here, because there's no distinct language in any decision that we're aware of that precludes that. So maybe we're okay here.
So to your point, Joe, just to clarify, on page, or not on to your point, on page 11 of the regulation, it says behaviors which are illegal in nature and or directly affect the safety and well-being of staff or their pupils fall into this category and can be found in the detail of the Board of Education policy. We kind of have to clarify that it's 5600. But on page 2 of that policy, it goes into more depth of what you're getting into, which is school authorities also have the right to impose consequence on people for conduct away from school grounds, including on school bus and or school sponsored functions pursuant of NJAC 6A 16.7.6. And then it goes more into if it deals with the emotional safety, well-being of students. So I think the takeaway is so long as we make that link on that case, right? It's a case-by-case basis. It can be seen. Then we reference the policy, which and the state statute, which says that we would be able to do that. I don't think it's so much as like a statement every single time, so much as it's saying reference the policy, which says that so long as a link can be made, that we will make that link. And then go forward.
At the end of the day, I think the state has been very, very consistent that any time that the administrative leadership feels that the health and safety and well-being of students or the student or other students doesn't, right? Any time that we feel that someone or someone's are in jeopardy or at risk to themselves or to others, we have a responsibility to act. Now, that's in legislation. Right? So legislation will always trump anything but the policy. The policy is just steering us clear of mandatory remediation on something that violates what is legislated, right? But at the end of the day, anytime, like it doesn't have to be drug or violence or controlled substance. It could be some other situation, who knows what, where the health, safety, and well-being is at risk, and we are therefore obliged to act responsibly.
And that'd be a level four infraction under the regulation. So I think thinking bigger picture macro of it outside of just substance abuse, but just anything illegal in nature will trigger that response to, does it impact the well-being of children in our schools, and if so, then we're going to act appropriately.
Absolutely, and just if I may, I mentioned before that regardless of if an infraction was not deemed something that we could provide a consequence for, we'd still offer services for assessment. The committee felt strongly that we wanted to require that, but by requiring that, then if you don't do it, then what? Then there's a constant punitive element to it. But ultimately, the committee felt that the reason to have a policy in place is for the health safety of students. So we would have liked that, but in running that by stress assessment, that was not something we could require.
I don't know that we can say that everything illegal has an impact. I mean, if you steal a car, I don't know what impact
Well, once
that
again,
would have.
I'm saying if it's illegal in nature, it would trigger level 4, but then it's a case-by-case basis to see that it would fulfill the statute, which says that it doesn't impact the well-being and safety of children.
The Ramsey Hill's case said, you could, the way they had it written, is jaywalking could be punished,
But that doesn't impact,
The only other question that I have is that when we not really started down the road, when we got toward the end, Mr. Forte had indicated that the reason, while we had a code of conduct, we were not sure whether it was or wasn't a board policy. It was in the student's manual, but we couldn't find it in our own catalog of policies. But at that point you said that why it was so important, because you wanted everything that was in any other policy that carried some discipline with it to be referred to the code of conduct policy in terms of what the actual discipline was. In fact, we have a draft of one here says of substance abuse, which has in it and will be subject to the school code of conduct, and there was no penalty involved. But that's not what we have here now. So why did we go backwards? Why?
Yeah, because Mr. Forte did ask me that same question the other day. The simple answer is that it fit the template provided by Strauss Esme more. There's an area within the substance abuse policy for discipline. While in the code of conduct in the 4 levels, we talk about a range of consequences for various infractions within that code of conduct. The substance abuse policy is the only area where we have, specific consequences for infractions, and it is mentioned as we presented it in 2 locations, in the code of conduct generically, and then more specifically outlined within the substance abuse policy. We just thought it was a more natural fit, but obviously that's for the board to review.
I did have one other question on one of the violations that was listed here. Give me a second. I'll find it here. Somebody will want to try to find them. It refers to
A consequence?
a list of, it was a list of all of the infractions.
I think that's probably in the
On the substance use, no.
It should be, it's in the pupil discipline
Okay,
regulation.
I found it. On page 2 of 15F, violate codes of conduct adopted for organizations of pupils. I don't understand that. What is that supposed to refer to? What are organizations of pupils?
This is the Strauss Esme language that we adopted as in the template, and this is really outside of what we really looked at. We focused more on the 24/7 policy. We viewed the Strauss Esme template that we received and essentially conservative.
So it was in Strauss Esme, we just didn't.
Correct. No, that's not our language. That's the Strauss Esme template.
My understanding is that's for, so one of the things that's not explicitly stated in here, which was one of my comments, and I think it's satisfied under that, but we just want to be clear, is the administrative team is still encouraged and obligated to have the other things that augment this, like a student handbook. And a student handbook, you can have in it remediations or disciplines or resolutions to certain things. So the high school students are an organization of pupils. Mr. Forte was just saying it could be club rules and bylaws for club activities.
Okay,
Right.
All right. Each team has.
So I think organizations of pupils is interpreted as any
Okay.
subset of students that might have
Right.
their own sort of extra
All right,
guidelines.
within our own district.
Within our own district,
We're not
that's
talking
right.
about some other.
Right. That way,
I'm talking about the Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or anything like that, right?
that way you have a policy that provides for the administrative team to run the buildings, run the schools as the sort of culture evolves and changes and students change and all the rest. You still have a student handbook, which I think should be referenced, and this is one of the comments we mentioned in a second, but that would be organizations of students.
Overall, just to speak to Geometry's point, the code of conduct really is the backbone for what we base, drive, is a backbone for the culture we set in our school, essentially, right? It's that macro picture of what are our expectations, what's our mindset going to drive for what do we accept, what don't we accept in terms of our behaviors. So then the substance abuse provides a deeper picture, a more micro level, a look at specifically around substance abuse, what will be the consequences when you get to the regulation, and then even on a macro micro level, the policy of substance abuse, once again, sets the culture around substance abuse, backbone of that, and then what to expect, not, what's okay, what's not okay.
and to that point, that's why we put the consequences in the regulations for the substance abuse policy.
Just a couple of comments I have. So what we ought to do is send this now back through athletics committee, which is where it originated. There's some changes to some grammar and sentences.
Yeah, so we
and
have a
stuff
chance
like
to
that.
go through athletics already, but we share some.
Well, I was going to suggest you take the feedback as we go around with the feedback
Yeah.
tonight, and then prepare it for first reading on the 30th, which is the next meeting, July 30th, which is our next meeting. A couple of the comments I have is on 5530, substance abuse policy. On the second page, it defines school grounds, and this is where there were some changes on
Yeah,
how it's defined.
I'm aware of that one.
We should just define it one way. In some cases, it's called school grounds. In other cases, it's called school premises.
And again, I'll stress Esme's language, but we picked that up, that premises, we probably should have added premises
Yeah,
to
just
make
make
that
it
consistent.
consistent. On page 6 in that same policy, just a point of clarification, this policy and regulation shall be made available annually at the beginning of the school year. And it goes on to explain. So all our policies are available via the website. That does not mean that the onus is on the school board to hand a copy of this to every student. I mean, we had an issue some years back, in part with smoking on school property, where we had a case that went to court. And one of the things that the judge admonished us is, even though it's state law, even though there's signs at every corner of the building, that we didn't give enough ample advance warning to the student that you're really, really, really not supposed to smoke at school, right? So I just want to avoid anything that puts the onus on the administrative team of the Board of Ed to hand somebody this piece of paper and to say it's in effect.
If I can just say, at the high school, within our handbook, it does reference, the handbook is only that big, but it does refer students to policy number 5530. How many students go there, I don't know, but it is at least outlined in our handbook that it's available on the website at that specific policy number.
On regulation 5530, it refers to on-campus activities that should be consistent with school premises or school grounds, however we define that. Right? So it's just, on page 5, and we have this in many places, and I think we ought to be a little bit clearer about it. By the time, as this passage goes on, I won't go through the whole thing, but in the third offense, it talks about this school suspension, in-school suspension on top of it, and it has Board of Education hearing, but it doesn't stipulate the purpose of the Board of Ed hearing. We ought to say what the purpose of having a hearing would be.
What page are you on?
Page 5 on the regulation 5530. On 5600, in the policy 5600, there should be, I think that it would be proper to have something that does state that the administrative team has responsibility, or the superintendent has responsibility, or designate to impose a student handbook above and beyond what the policy calls for. That's the tool that you use to manage the school's day-to-day. Page 2 and 3 have in it, Mr. Forte highlighted this in the note that he sent out. All the italicized paragraphs, I think there's 6 of them. My view is that we should take these paragraphs out of this policy. These are HHIB oriented paragraphs, and we have an HHIB policy in and of itself. So I'd be concerned that we confuse HHIB intent or stipulations by having it in more than one place. We should just have student discipline here, maybe replace it with a reference and say when it comes to HHIB, we'll refer to policy number or XYZ, whatever it is. And that's the HHIB policy. Otherwise, you'd have to maintain it in 2 places. It should be consistent with the concern that you have.
Yeah, and currently that does not, those 6 paragraphs are not within our policy. We uncovered those as we were reviewing, and they are currently in Strauss-Esme language. We brought them to your attention. We assumed that you probably removed them at some point because the HHIB policy is, there's probably duplicity with that. So really you just need to delete what we...
Just that policy, so it's not...
Right, but right now, on our existing policy, those 6 paragraphs aren't there.
So, right, your recommendation is...
Right.
Okay. That's it.
So we recommend taking these out, then, you said?
Well, yeah, I think Mr. Galvin is saying that those are in there just for our own reference to remind ourselves that we're not putting those in there because they are covered in the HHIB. We agree what they are, and I think, Joe, I think if you looked at the HHIB policy side by side with that, you'd find that the HHIB one is is written pursuant to the legislation, and B, it's much more comprehensive. So you kind of avoid we're going to be in some situation where somebody's going to say, hey, you got this policy, you got that, and, which one is great? Usually most of them.
Just a couple notes on policy 5600. There are several spots with this annual reporting and review, and just to be cognizant, we should just be cognizant of who is overseeing that. I know it's Mr. Forte, but there are some things on here which that relate to board responsibilities or local documents and such, so something to be aware of, and I would imagine it would go through athletics.
Now, are all of those legislative actions, like annual review of XN, like,
So some are, yeah, some are generally his report to the NJDOE and those kind of things that even fall under the HIB policy.
so my personal view is if it's something that we're meant to, we do a lot of checking the box for the state, so if it's something along those lines, that's fine. If it's something that we choose to do above and beyond that, that's of our own choosing. I'd be hesitant to put it into policy and make it where we're opted to violate our own policy only because there's too many of these things. We would consume a lot of time reviewing that.
Yeah, like right here it says like development is an annual review and updates policy shall involve parent, people, and community involvement. So it means every year we're getting together with all those players to go through.
So for next reading, we have to be comfortable that we want to say that that's what we're going to go.
And that's what I'm getting at. If we want to do it every single year, we got to keep it in there and do it every year though.
My view is any policy we can update anytime we want.
But
And
that having
engage
to
community
codify
as we
it.
see fit. I don't think we have to go about it.
Yeah, that was my one concern there. And then there are some, so like the building principal shall maintain a current list of community-based health and social services. It might already be done, but just something to be cognizant of. To Mr. Kwakwochi's point, the people on page 4 of 5600, the people discipline code of conduct policy shall be disseminated annually. It might be worth just giving some consideration as to how, just so we don't fall into.
It's in the policy book and all policies are online, but that's it.
It's also in the summer mailing or the.
I guess I had a question about that too. We said we reference it online, but we say disseminate.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is for voting on the first reading at the next meeting, for my vote, it would be, this is our policy, just like we have, our policy book,
So
we
we
did
should-
it, it's 5 inches thick.
So we should strike this.
Look, our policies are what they are. We can reference them in the mailings, like Mr. Galvin said, and go read them if you choose to. But
And then,
again, like the technicality is, Mr. Elliott, you didn't tell me that I had to go read that, therefore.
Right. No, agreed. That's why
It's
it's
silly.
just on page 11 of the regulation, 5600, level 4, bottom of the page, the first sentence I read previously states that the behaviors which are illegal in nature and or directly affect, it goes on, it says, can be found in detail in the Board of Education policy. I think we might want to give some thought to just stating specifically what policy on page 11 of the regulations, so maybe just the 5600, I'm imagining, since that would be the pupil discipline and code of conduct policy.
Right, so typically the regulation will reference the policy
Yeah,
that's
so just-
paired with, so you could just add the term in there to reference the right policy.
Exactly, and then I'm not sure what, for pages 12 and 14,
We still have regulation?
some regulation 5600, there's just some duplicate language. I don't think it's not a lot of it, but some of the points like the people code of conduct regulation 5600 shall be disseminated. So like, for example, we striked out disseminated previously, it might pop up somewhere else as well. So I don't know if that's a question, just making sure that we hit all those spots, or just making sure that we streamline so we don't duplicate the paragraphs.
So I think the suggestion is it goes back at this point to athletics,
Yeah.
committee, right, you've got the feedback that you collected, work with Mr. Forte to change it, send it out in advance of the July 30th meeting so the rest of the board can have a
Okay, so
chance to read
I
it.
won't finish the page, that was an update just so everyone, just get feedback from everyone's opinion on it first before we did that. Did I go through it? Not a problem. I'll do it, I'll shoot back.
So we're doing the, so I think you got Joe's feedback, you got mine.
So then I just want to have first, yeah.
I think you have, athletics is you and Joe, right?
I mean, I don't.
You and Dawn, so just go through it, you and Dawn, and send it out to the board, like I said, in advance, so people have a chance to
Yeah.
read it, it's four of these things,
Yeah.
for the 30th meeting, and,
Alright.
then we can do a first reading, hopefully, of that.
Yeah, if any other questions, just contact, I guess you directly, no problem, Sunshine Law, you just contact me directly and I'll walk through it, whatnot.
Anything else from Mr. Galchek?
Do you want to do that?
What? To meet with you on this?
No.
Oh. No, I'm good
Okay.
with that.
Okay.
Thanks, yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is Mr. Forte to do a review presentation of our 2012-2013 goals and accomplishments against our goals that we set a year ago, and reintroduce the strategic plan elements that we need to vote on later tonight. And then from those two bits, we'll arrange our annual goals and set them for the 13-14 year. While he's getting that projector up, everybody should have the update of all the policies that need updating this year. So it's a couple pages long. There are 27 education committee policies that need to be reviewed in some shape or form. 27 for education, 13 for finance, 5 for athletics, and 5 for B&G. So we'll leave it to each committee to plot through those and get them, once they review them and got the language sorted out, get them to the board table for dialogue and discussion with the whole board, and then we can schedule first and second readings and adopt. Ready to go? Yes. You want,
Okay, so this again is our annual goal setting time, discuss what's going on this year toward the end of this 5-year strategic plan that will expire on July 30th. We'll talk a little bit about the new plan and the things that we want to do coming up in 13-14. So the first slide here is our current strategic plan. You have a copy of this in that packet I gave you this afternoon. I put it in there. So that's our current strategic plan. Here's an update of the goals. So we have 4 strategic goals. One was all graduates will have mastered a challenging curriculum that prepares them for productive futures as problem solvers, independent thinkers, and responsible citizens. I talked a little bit about the things that we did. We have 94% of our seniors attending college, prep school, or gap year. 6% are going on to a career in the military and work world. We also signed some agreements with various colleges and universities, including Syracuse University for 13-14. And we have 100% of our seniors with a planned post-secondary experience. Number 2 was all students will demonstrate character, service, social awareness through curricular and co-curricular programs. So we have some new electives that help us implement these things. The Holocaust and careers in education. We also have peer leaders, lunch bunch, heroes and cool kids. And one of the reasons why I talk about careers in education again is not only is it an elective, but it gets the high school kids to work with the middle school and elementary school kids to have like a K-12 cooperation between the grades. All teachers will meet or exceed the highest levels of professional standards in teaching. So PD, the professional development across the board, has raised the rigor, and reading and writing workshop has also brought in a new program for literacy. And for the first year, we hosted the annual AP workshop for all of North Jersey. And in, for the focus on area teachers, additional subject certified teachers are being hired all the time. So that's the part that we're trying to meet or exceed the highest levels of professional standards. All district facilities will provide students with state-of-the-art, safe learning working environments. For 12-13, we did allocate additional funds. We are doing some projects with our normal budget. We have improved our cooperative relationships with the township, and we are planning for a referendum for late 2013, early 2014. So our 5-year strategic plan update. The strategies. Strategy 1, K-12 curriculum. We are implementing reading and writing workshops, infusing nonfiction, updating math curriculum, integrating STEM in the existing and new programs. STEM is science, technology, engineering, and data. Character, service, citizenship, and social awareness. Focus on acceptance and anti-HIV, inside and outside speakers, New Girls Learn International Club. These are all things to help promote acceptance. Community partnerships. New relationships with the North Essex and Verona Chambers of Commerce has led to some new infusion of new funds. Developing relationships with the business to promote future internships, community involvement, and the creation of a new 5-year strategic plan. Professional development. We spent a great amount of time and resources training for the new engineering by design, the new teacher and principal evaluation, advanced placement, reading and writing workshop, and also our state mandated PD. Park training for a framework for learning and excellence. Park training, common assessments created, student growth objectives. Student growth objectives are part of the new teacher evaluation model where you have benchmarks, and this is part of the training that we've been working on. Technology, we're continuing a cycle of replacing computers district-wide. In other words, we have 600 computers, they don't last forever. If we replace 1/4 of them every year, every 4 years we have new computers. And we also are continuing our summer maintenance program. Our summer maintenance program in technology specifically is one of the things that we do is a simple thing where we have to take all of our, it actually sounds simple, but it's a fairly involved process. Because we have 600 machines, we need to take them all out, open them up, blow them out, make sure that they're clean so that it extends the life of them. Then we need to update the desktop. What we wanted was a uniform desktop around the district. So that when you log on any computer, you'll have the same screen if you log in Lanning or FM Brown. So those are the types of things that we talk about when we mean summer maintenance of technology. And we're also planning for a referendum to address technology needs. We've gone with a company called ProMedia for right now to do a study district-wide of what our needs are for technology.
ProMedia is the company we used the last time too, right? It's the same.
And buildings and grounds, planning for a referendum to address facility and security needs, increased operating budget allowed for additional projects to be completed, and a security committee has been created to study not just security in terms of our doors locked, but the policy, procedures, training, things like that. These were the goals for 12-13. One, the first goal was to plan for implementation of a new teacher evaluation model. Now, this is a statewide thing that everyone has to do. We all have to be ready to go on September 1st. And the model we've chosen is Marzano. We've spoken about it several times in here. And we've done a lot of training on it this year. The training will continue next year. In September, we'll be focusing mostly on the student growth objectives and actually using the eye observation tool. Number 2 is to create a system of internships. The program will begin during 12-13. I'm going to get to this, but the new strategic plan specifically states this. One of the things that we did to get this off the ground was the careers in ed class. I know I spoke about that several times, but it's about where students learn about being a teacher in the classroom. Then they go and they have a chance to practice teaching in our schools. Improve the district technology department. One of the things we did as of July 1st is we actually brought on someone to manage technology. And this person, Ms. Costanza, has implemented a cycle of computer replacement and maintenance. We do have some areas of Wi-Fi in the district, and not the Wi-Fi that you buy in the store, but we have regular Wi-Fi that can handle many devices at the same time. Another thing we did was we put our district board of education meetings on YouTube. Number 4 was to reduce administrative spending. So we did make some changes. There were a few administrative assistant positions that were not refilled, which led to a $34 per pupil administrative cost decrease. And then we looked to increase outside revenue. And some of the new outside revenue streams that we put together did bring in $107,000. So 12-13 merit goals. The merit goals were for the superintendent. This is a fairly new concept. When the state pushed for the cap and made it a law, one of the things they did was they added into the superintendent's contract a series of merit goals that the board can approve. There are 5 merit goals here that I'll go through to explain our progress on them.
These are the ones that we set at the beginning of the school.
Yes, it was in the September meeting. So one of the first one was a quantitative goal, and it was to increase the amount of revenue from outside sources by at least $75,000. So we have a total new revenue of $107,000. Quantitative objective number 2 was that there will be a 0% increase in the administrative costs from school year 12-13 to school year 13-14 in the budgeted amount. So the budgeted administrative costs in the 12-13 school year was $1,404 per pupil. The budgeted administrative cost per pupil in 13-14 this next year is $1,370. Quantitative objective number 3 had to do with test scores in actually decreasing the number of kids who are partially proficient on the 7th grade math test. I can't give you results on that now due to the fact that the results for the test don't come back until August. Once they come back in, I'll have another update just on that one goal. Qualitative objective number 1, the board will approve a new 5-year strategic plan, and that will be done tonight. And qualitative objective number 2 was to create these dual enrollment opportunities for our students in Verona High School. And currently, we've had signed agreements with Bergen County College, Seton Hall University, New Jersey Institute of Technology, Fairleigh Dickinson University, Colwell College, and for 13-14, Syracuse University. During this first year, 62 students took advantage of earning college credit through those different universities.
62, presumably all seniors?
Not all of them. Some of them are in classes like, remember the Colwell College class we had last year? There were some juniors, so they earned it going into their senior year.
So it's
Some
juniors.
earned it going into their junior year.
So it's juniors and seniors.
Each college is different. So most of them are juniors and seniors, but some colleges will let you do sophomores. So each college that we deal with have different criteria. We have to go by their criteria.
Right. But the 62 students in Verona are mostly seniors, some juniors.
Right. Some juniors and seniors. Right.
Okay.
Like, for example, the Fairleigh Dickinson one through Careers in Ed, it's only seniors.
I just know that we have something like 5 times or 4 times the number of AP participation that we had 5-6 years ago. That's on, and this is 62 is on top of that because these are college credit. These are not these are in addition to the AP
Correct.
numbers that we have.
Correct.
Okay.
So, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, just to the last point, even with the summer program this summer, we're offering the college credit.
We have two, you know how we do VC, right?
Yeah.
When I came in here at VC, I saw the first one, it was K-8. I said, well, is anybody interested in doing something in the high school? I said, why don't we do a college class? So everybody was on board with it. So last year, we got off the ground Vietnam War through Caldwell College. We had 10 students taking it. This year, we're offering the Vietnam War and general psychology. The Vietnam War this year might not run. I don't think there's enough to run it, but this general psychology course will. So students who sign up for general psychology, they pay $500. If they want the credit, if they don't want the credit, it's $200. It goes $300 of it goes to Caldwell College. They earn 3 college credits.
And I was at work last week, and coworker coach me and said, "Oh, I hear that you are offering some courses at Verona that you can earn college credit for." And he said, "I think I'm going to enroll my son in this course." And I thought to myself, "Wow, we really need to get that. We're getting the word out apparently because people. I mean, I'm 2 towns over, and she lives a few towns over, but clearly it's a."
So they don't live in this town.
No, they don't. But
That's
they were
great.
Like, they were like, I want to get involved. I want to
That's
be a
great.
part of it. So I just wanted to. But I didn't mention it because it's a highlight of what we're doing is needed. What we're doing, obviously, it's going well. So,
Well, I can tell you what we did. We did the emails. I sent it to every college, every superintendent in Essex County. I wrote 2 articles about it that I put on the patch. I had other news outlets publicize it. So it's been out there, and the good news is, I mean, it's good and bad. The good news is we're going to run the class, and some of the kids that are coming are from Nutley High School. So we opened it up to anybody who wanted to run it. They're paying a slightly increased cost than the Verona kids, but
Does that count the student's GPA for high school?
all right. So we offer 3 things. We offer. The good thing about it is just flexibility. You can take it for college credit, you can take it for high school credit, or you can take it for both. Now it won't go towards class rank. That's what you're asking. It'll show up on their transcript as taking it, but not in class rank. That's only the summer one.
So the other ones you take in the school year, that does count to?
It counts in their GPA. But the credit part is really not really anything to do with us. Believe it or not, it's all through the college. The college transcript part, yeah. What our teacher does, like for example, the Seton Hall University class, the senior English, the teacher gives a grade for this class in high school, but then she logs on, just like she's a professor at Seton Hall, because that's actually what they consider you, a professor. She logs on to onto their website and gives a grade just like one of their professors does. Then the kids order a transcript, really nothing to do with us, directly from Seton Hall. But it's a pretty cool thing because the kids are really actually getting a transcript from Seton Hall University or Syracuse or NJIT. So it's a great opportunity for them. And the good thing about it is like it never expires. You have those 3 credits. You might, who knows? Maybe someday you want to do something else with it, So it's a pretty great opportunity. So our mission statement. This is the new mission statement.
So that's so just before we go on, so any questions about the review of the current year goals and progress against it?
We would rank these as achieved.
I think we would rank them as achieved,
Rate them or rank
except for the 7th grade math one, which is,
Right.
I think we would mark them as achieved. I think the revenue, I speak for everybody when we said, will we see an increase of 75,000 in revenue? We all thought at the time that 75,000 was sort of lofty. And Mr. Forte's come in with a little over 100,000. That's sort of achieved. The administrative cost on a per pupil basis is a favorable change. And we've been trending down over the years, even though we have 6 buildings relative to most other places that don't have anywhere near that number of buildings. Therefore, administrative cost per student is high. Administrative cost per building is on the lowest of the low. 7th grade, what we talked about, the 5-year strategic plan we'll get into next, so that's done and submitted to the board at least. And then on the earning college credit, we've come a long way, and that's why I made the point before. This is achieved, I think, in a commendable fashion up in the high school where not only do you have, remember, we're still 160 kids thereabouts in the schools. 62 of them, per grade, 62 of them are taking college level, college credit courses, in addition to 370 odd AP enrollments, which is going to go up over 420 in September. So phenomenal change on the high school.
No, I didn't recognize that we actually.
We have a resolution ready to say yes or no.
Yeah, but then district goals as well. I think also, we achieve those as well. Just thinking that as we move forward to the next.
I think a lot of these goals are, remember, a lot of our goals are not absolute. They're,
You don't expect
and we try to stay away, historically we've stayed away from, we will have at least 50 kids that we consider, as many kids as possible. Because we've been pleasantly surprised almost in every case where once we're going on something, the participation or the change is much
Yeah.
greater than what we
Well,
thought.
something like what reduce administrative spending, so we can have what we have.
That's
Put it
what
right in concrete.
Right.
I think something like improve the district technology department.
Yeah, that's more than
It is. I don't think anybody can argue with the fact that now we're maintaining our computers is, I would say it's up.
we
So I
cities in place.
Right.
It's,
We're on the right track.
think one of the big highlights of the new strategic plan and the strategies, they really get down to the details, so it's not so nebulous. I think moving forward into this current year, when we look at goals such as improved district technology, we just want to make sure that we adopt that same strategy of having those strategies in place, so we can mark off that we met our whatever our criteria were for that year. Because it is good to sit here and say, oh yeah, I think we got it, but did we really make whatever strategic improvements we want to make? So like our goals have to, or our strategies, however we philosophically go about setting these goals, they need to be measurable, ambitious, and achievable. And when we look at improved district technology, it's not necessarily measurable, right? We can't say, yes, we completed 10%.
Yeah, so when we work on that, we set up the goals.
So yeah, that's what I mentioned as we move forward.
We have a more specific thing to improve technology.
Well, I think early on in the current 5-year plan that's now ending this month, the first year was very, very discreet. The second year was a little less discreet. The third year was, and as time goes on, it becomes like improve the technology plan. In year one, it was distinctly go fix the technology as part of our friend, right? In year 5, it was build a better, stronger technology presence so we could go off and do a proper technology plan, which is what you did, right? It was more around getting the team oriented so that you can go do the proper planning and get friendly, et cetera.
I have to say, I think even though we're nowhere near where I'd like to be with technology, nobody's going to argue with that, but we made a lot of progress. If you just think about simple things like we increased the department by 100%.
Yeah, but that's 100%.
We went from 1 to 2. We went from 1 to 2. But I'm making it a point, but it's true. Like now we actually have somebody who actually thinks about, as her job, her sole job is to think about technology, where we're going, do the breakfast stuff, but also think like where are we going in the future. Dealing with pro media, where she spearheaded the whole idea.
No, I think Mike's point is well made, that we just want to make sure that as we set up new goals, that we're as specific as we can.
I agree. No, I agree. I'm pretty proud of the technology thing, just of where we came from to where we are now, even though we have a lot more to go. And I think we have a lot, we've done a lot, but we're not even close. I want to have specific technology goals because I'll definitely do it. Okay. So, Joe, you have something?
Yeah, I want to go back to the strategic goals. And the one that I had the most problem with when we implemented the strategic plan 5 years ago was number 4. And I said there's no way that we can even come close to living up to number 4, which says that all district facilities provide students with state-of-the-art, safe learning and working environment. Well, we have a bunch of stuff that we listed on there from year to year. But if I were to give it a grade, I'd give it a D- because we're not state-of-the-art anywhere.
Yeah.
So, and again, it was a semantics thing then, and it's still a semantics thing with me now. And I don't want to fall into that same trap with the new strategic plan we fell in with the old strategic plan. One of the things I'd like to see us do with the old strategic plan is, from year to year, the superintendent has given us an update on what we we've done. And I can't remember, I can hardly remember what I had for breakfast this morning, so I can't remember what we said in year one. And I don't know if we even have that information anymore. I'd like to go back and do,
I can look back on my computer.
go back and do a comprehensive update of everything we said we did. And then for us to do another self-evaluation, like we did our own board evaluation, self-evaluation, do an evaluation. Did we achieve what we wanted?
I think you're right about before. When we look at 6, the way it's more the strategic plan, it's provide upgraded sustainable buildings, grounds, and technical infrastructure. State-of-the-art construction.
Right, the committees.
Yeah,
went
I totally agree with that. I was happy to see that.
That's, the committees went through the same thought process. They were saying, look, set it so that it's achievable,
Right.
and it has enough in the wording that there's some latitude for differences you're gonna come across. Like someone's student performance is, a lot of this, all students, like I was talking earlier about, it says all students, but the spirit of it is that since we differentiate students, every student will have a plan or an opportunity or whatever they're gonna have, but the goal is to not just focus on smart students or above average students or students that need help. Everyone has a particular area of focus.
But if we could, by the end of the summer, certainly not something we have to do now, is to update everything that we said we did.
I think we have all of those, some of them are pretty long. I remember there's one that Chuck Sampson that was about 70 pages long with all that was in it, because he had a lot of supporting data and that goes. But we have, all that.
Skip this.
Yeah, I have it on my computer. So goals, you want to see like all these goal setting, all these reports?
All these reports.
Yeah, all of these.
So there's only
Right.
4 other ones.
Right.
Or 3 other ones, right? Because 2
We
of
can
them.
consolidate them. I mean,
I saw mine and I saw the one before mine, so I'll show
So
you that.
you did last year's, you did this year's, that's 2 of the 5 right
So
there.
I'm sure they're on there.
Yeah, they're on there.
all right, and then we can, just kind of look at them ourselves and give our grade ourselves here.
Yeah.
That's what we did. So.
You want me to put those together in that packet that I always do?
That's why I wanted to consolidate them. I don't want to go through, sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3, sheet 4.
All right, so tell me how you want me to do it.
Strategic goal number 1. Well, here's what we said for 4 years about strategic goal
Okay.
number 1, then 2.
All right, so I got you, no problem.
All right, just a cumulative description of what we said.
Okay.
Okay, so now on this year's strategic plan, we, a couple of months back, when Ms. Jewett presented, we went through the mission statement, the goals, the values, and the commitments. So you're gonna just refresh us on those. And then the meat of it are the strategies, the 6 strategies and the results, the expected result statements. Remember, the action plans against these and the goal setting that we do is gonna be based on what we agree to on those strategies, right?
So I'll read into the record the new mission statement. The mission of the Verona Public Schools, the center of engaged and supportive community, is to empower students to achieve their potential as active learners and productive citizens through rigorous curricula and meaningful, enriching experiences. The 4 goals: all students articulate and embody our core values. All students demonstrate meaningful academic and social growth. All students independently apply learning experiences to new contexts. And all students graduate from high school with a thoughtful plan for the future. And our core values: collaboration, diligence, initiative, integrity, respect, responsibility. Commitments: acting in the best interest of all students, respecting the individuality of students, developing long-term financial plans, making data-informed decisions, favoring action, and rejecting mediocrity. Strategies: in order to support our mission, these are the things we will do. 1, secure adequate financial resources. 2, foster a healthy and respectful school culture consistent with our core values. 3, partner locally and globally to expand opportunities for our school community. 4, continue to implement a rigorous integrated curriculum with authentic experiences and assessments. Number 5, provide a meaningful professional development program for all staff. And number 6, provide upgraded sustainable buildings, grounds, and technical infrastructure.
Number 1, obviously, the most important thing, secure adequate financial resources. I'm just trying to wrap my head around that, because, so we have a budgetary process before the budget, we don't want to go meet. But that, I think we all acknowledge, that's not covering even our basically to this point. So I don't know, but other than, I'm struggling with that.
I think you look to the next page. If you look to the next page of my slide, it tells you how exactly we're going to do that.
Yeah, but I'm hung up on the word adequate as I was hung up on state-of-the-art facilities. I mean, when you say adequate, do we ever have adequate funding? Do we ever say we have adequate funding?
Well, let's look at the
If
five.
we did, then we would have state-of-the-art facilities, but we don't have state-of-the-art facilities.
So,
So I would say, in a secure, additional, whatever, I mean, I'm all in favor of doing what we're trying to do, but to ever say that we have adequate funding, I don't know that in my lifetime I'll ever see that.
So why don't we do this then? Why don't we go to the next page, because you can read what the results of what the intention is, and then if the word adequate is the offending word, we can replace adequate with something else. But
Right.
the more important thing is what the 5 results are, right? So for example, the first one, why don't you just like,
Sure.
so the first one, develop a sustainable financial plan. In other words, this is something we've talked about as a board. We know, we can predict today, if we were to resurface a gym floor, how many years from now before we have to resurface that floor again? Or something that would cost money to do, just using the floor as an example. Right, a sustainable financial plan calls for some schedule of spending so that we don't fall perpetually behind and have to do massive infusions of bond money or something. We can do it on a more calculated and controlled basis, a more scheduled basis. The second one we're already doing, identify alternative sources of revenue. Identify and develop partnerships and shared service agreements with other schools, educational entities, and the municipality. We're charging to stay focused on doing that and exploit that over and over again. Partner with our employees to develop healthcare options which most efficiently provide the health and well-being of our staff. Now, even though we do that as part of our negotiation process, the action committee felt it was important enough to put distinctly as a board focus to remain conscious of that. Number 5, establish communication to better inform stakeholders of the financial aspects. A lot of the parents and even staff on the action committee on finance were strongly vocal that we have a lot of improvement to do on how we communicate to the public. We do our budget process, we do our annual fact book, and we do our strategic plan. We populate them, put them on the website, meet them, have presentations, it's on VTV. Except if you don't come to board meetings, there's not a lot of people sitting here, and if you don't watch VTV, I'm sure they're not shaking up the Nielsen ratings. The reality is that it's difficult to get monthly, ongoing sense from the board and the administrative team on the goings on around our finances and what we're shooting for in progress. So that, we'll talk about communication as we go through this, but that's true, right? So now, this is all around the financial resources to go and achieve these 5 things. However, we would word that as the spirit of the terminology. So the committee, I was on the committee, so I can speak to it. The committee was not focused on adequate financial resources. That was just the title of it. All the work went into the 5 objectives.
Yeah, the challenge here, I think, is result 1 is the sustainable funding as well. I think that's, that's what we're struggling with.
Correct. So the feedback from the committee, from the citizens on the committee was, a sustainable plan is a plan. It doesn't mean that you're going to be able to execute. So for example, a sustainable plan might say every 3 years for the next 15, we need to do a $3 to $5 million referendum to catch up on all the things that need to be fixed. That's not pretending that. It's totally made up, right? If you go to referendum the first time and you fail, that doesn't mean that suddenly everything is going to go fix itself. You still need that money. You just delayed another year, right? That's what they meant by sustainable plan.
Right. My fear is all, that to some degree we set ourselves up for a little bit of failure on that.
That's okay. But then you'll have evidence on why you're shutting down fields and buildings, right? I mean, the alternative is to fix them or shut or condemn them, right? Those are your 2 choices.
That was, the point was too, that some of these, if you achieve all of them fairly easily, you probably didn't push it hard enough.
This will never, finances are never easy.
That's a tough one.
That's the tough one. And that's why it's first. I mean, that was the sense I got last week when Liz presented that.
Well, I got to tell you, I think number 2 under there, I think we haven't tapped into a lot of other things. And I'm not saying that the alternative sources will will provide 10% of our budget. I'm not saying that, but I think if the tax levy provides the bare necessities, maybe some of the other stuff will provide the things to move forward. I think that's a goal.
It's,
Yeah. So,
I think there's gonna be a lot of hope in every one of these pages.
no, I think some are more.
But there's no one else
No.
coming but us.
No, I
There's
think-
no cavalry over there.
No,
except-
there isn't. No, and I don't mean to be cavalier about it or defeatist either. I'm just saying that this is the one area that is always a constant struggle year in, year out. And
I think the message from the working groups was control everything that you can control, just try to control it more than you have. That's sort of the message.
so strategy number 2 is foster a healthy and respectful school. Foster a healthy and respectful school culture consistent with our core values. And the 3 results on that was to collect and evaluate current initiatives. In other words, do a survey. What are we actually doing right now? Make sure that we have a comprehensive list of all the things we're doing, curricularly, extracurricular, programs, speakers, anything like that. Have that all together on one long document. Number 2 is to conduct a survey. It would be a culture or climate survey, district-wide, which I would like to do even by department too. What does the public think of Department X? These are a few questions. This is not something that we make up. This is a scientific survey that would be done by a professional. And then develop and articulate a common age-appropriate understanding of our core values.
When the working group for this presented to the steering committee, the message on this whole section was they felt strongly that we ought to have visible, defined values that Mr. Forte read off before, but in order to make them meaningful, that those values ought to be incorporated into any of the school culture or awareness programs that we do from HHIB across the board. So what this page talks to is do the evaluation of all that you're doing already, sort of the inventory that we've talked about many times. Make sure it's oriented and right-sized for the sort of district that we are and what our needs and aspirations are. And then make sure that the values that we've agreed to are embodied in all of it.
Strategy number 3 talks about partnering locally and globally to expand our opportunities for school community. One of the things would be to expand the options for seniors for authentic experiences in preparation for post-high school experience, post-high school planning. One of the examples, again, would be that Careers in Ed class, where you're taking a group of kids that may want to just look to see what's being a teacher like, learn a little bit about the classroom, and then actually go and do it. Some people might say, wow, I like this, I'm going to consider it as a career. Some people might say, wow, I don't want to do this, I'm going to do something totally different. So it's just an opportunity for people to get those experiences. Again, there's other things. It could be pairing up with an architect or pairing up with a business administrator, something like that. Institute a servants learning community service requirement at VHS, which students must complete prior to graduation. For example, maybe there's some type of a number, like every student must perform 30 hours of community service prior to graduation, something like that. That might be something that we consider to add in. Increase community partnership and attendance at district functions and events. And expand global learning opportunities for our students. Comments on that one? Number 3?
When they presented this one, the spirit of it was that that if you use the college credit progress that we made in just the last, call it maybe 15 months or so, it's a little over a year, but not quite a year and a half. It's pretty impressive. 60 some odd students are now earning college credit. 2 years ago, we didn't have that, it was 0. Right? What this talks about is what other experiences are out there that the students can engage with that are internship or other experience related outside of their pure academics, and ways to get that going for the students.
The only other comment I really have is around result number 2 about instituting a service learning and community service requirement. I think that's a great idea, but just as you develop that, be cognizant that there are a lot of students that are involved in a lot of activities that you may not be aware of, the school community may not be aware of. For example, I'm the Scoutmaster of Troop 2 in Verona. I know a lot of the boys are doing, for example, Eagle service projects, and
But that might count.
that's
I think
exactly my point. Let's be aware of what the students are doing. You don't say, oh, well, you need to, we have a requirement that you need to have 30 hours that you have to monitor, whatever it may be.
Now, this did not come from me, but I'll tell you a little bit about where I was before as a high school principal. Every student from the time they were freshman to the time they were senior had to log 30 hours.
Right.
Things like you're talking about counted as the hours.
Okay,
They just had to come in with, like, we had these forms. They
okay,
brought it to the Scoutmaster, they signed it, and we
Right.
logged it in.
that's great.
So 30 hours from freshman to senior year is not that much.
Oh, it's not that much.
And that's just a number I threw
Yeah,
out.
and I think we have a very high percentage of our student community that are involved in a lot of either civic, church, whatever other activities they may be involved in. They're doing a tremendous amount of community service. And I just don't want us to say, well, we don't recognize that.
We even have students in our own place doing things for us.
Yeah.
For example, we had a student on the strategic planning committee. That would be a community service opportunity.
Yeah.
Mrs. Costanza last summer realized, wow, I need a few extra kids. She called in a few kids. They came in and helped with the computers.
Yeah. Let's
So,
just be open to it.
yeah, anything like
With
that,
this.
sure. You know. Where are we at? 3, 4? Strategy 4, continue to implement a rigorous and integrated curriculum with authentic experiences and assessments. So number 1, develop student self-assessments that encourage students to be active participants in their learning and provide teachers with feedback to guide future instruction. Reevaluate current curriculum and resources to ensure they're aligned with the standards and meeting the needs of all students. Integrate STEM-based educational opportunities, which again stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. Integrate literacy in all subjects to produce strong analytical thinkers that can decipher content-based text. Update course offerings in the middle and high school levels to ensure that the Verona School District meets the needs of students within the 21st century. Continue to expand upon the UBD curriculum framework with emphasis on assessment and transfer. And develop common assessments that ensure consistent, rigorous curriculum and provide meaningful feedback to teachers and students and teachers.
On this one, the 2 things. One is, it turns out that all 7 of these and many other things are already either in play or scheduled to start very, very soon. So for example, number 7 on the common assessments, we have some common assessments already in place, which you also heard Mr. Miller, when he came up at the last meeting, say one thing that he'd like to see through is to complete that work and get the assessments in all places that he want them across the disciplines and up and down the grade levels. But again, all of these are in some shape or form, according to Ms. Jewett, either already started and need to be propagated and expanded to the district and completed, or they're just on the cusp of starting, like the STEM-based.
When I look at these, I mean, this is the meat of what we're trying to do here.
Right.
I mean, this is educating kids.
Right.
I don't know if we're locked into the numbering of the strategies. I mean, I understand why they said that strategy 1 was secure adequate financial resources. I don't know if we bump that down to number 2.
Now, remember, you could work on strategies, a column, think of them like a column of an area of focus. You could work on,
Yeah,
work
no,
on
yeah,
X
but
number of results
they are
on all
numbers.
6.
Yeah.
Right, they're, important point, they're not in the priority order.
Right. They're not, but I don't know if we. I think when they said they went to number 1, that it was the priority order.
It was important, just that it came up first, but it wasn't. One suggestion that I would make is that we consider going through, as we go through these, we could just make one of our annual goals, execute year 1 of the strategic plan.
We've done that.
That's right.
We've done that in the past.
And then we would just agree with Mr. Forte, all right, so each strategy, which of the results would be in play. So for example, in the first one, if
So
you
that's a
read,
tactic to the strategy.
right, so if you read the first one, like the financial one, for example, you could say that results 1, 2, and 3 are things we want to go achieve this year. You could go do that planning in 1 year. you may not finish it all, but you start working on strategies, on results 1, 2, and 3. When you get to number 4, strategy number 4, this one, the suggestion could be turn it over to Mr. Miller and Mr. Forte and say, hey, some facet of all 7, let us know if there's a reason why you couldn't start to tackle some facet of all 7 of these right out of the gate. Maybe it's a 3 or 4 year evolution on all 7 of them before you finally get to the finishing line. It doesn't mean you have to finish number 1 before you do number 2. Getting STEM going and getting an expansion of our curriculum framework and getting common assessments done, you can make progress on all 3
Yeah,
of
it
those
should be
in
in
1 year.
order, you don't cross them off, like, I've done 1, I'm going to go to 2.
That's right, that's right. I think it's almost easier if you look at these and say, which of the things that we would agree are probably too many for us to go after in 1 year. So for example, I go back to the first goal on the financials. It's likely the case that number 4 and number 5, partner with our employees to develop healthcare. Well, we just did the contract, right? It's probably a 3-year out or 2.5-year out sort of exercise. Result number 5 is establish communication plan to better inform. Maybe that's something we tackle next year.
This is just strictly semantics, but whenever I do separate exercise in my day-to-day job, a strategy and tactics will come results. And these to me they are tactics. These are how we can achieve that strategy.
Yeah, here
So
are the
results
strategies.
denotes what we've done.
Yeah, so here the strategies are an area of focus,
Yeah.
and the results are to give you a guide on what's
Yeah.
expected.
Like it's just semantics, but tactics versus results.
That was number 4, so
Number 5 is professional development.
Provide meaningful professional development program for staff. Create an online forum that connects teachers across the district to share and grow professionally. Institute professional learning communities and teacher-driven professional development opportunities that differentiate for the various needs and interests of all staff. Foster collaboration with local school districts, colleges, and universities to meet the varied needs and interests of staff. Integrate training for all state and locally mandated initiatives into existing structure of district-wide professional development days, department and grade level meetings. Develop and implement a district-wide comprehensive training program on all aspects of the new teacher evaluation model, and foster professional culture of data-informed decision-making.
So these are all things that either the board has had to address already, like around the teacher evaluation system, or that the curriculum department has already either defined or started. So the suggestion on this was, again, turn it over to Mr. Miller, the job description for his role as professional development for the district, and say, all right, out of this, maybe part of the goal could be get us a plan for the next 2 years or something on how you would start to attack some subset of this in some sensible way.
Any questions on any of those specifics there?
Just on number 3, foster collaboration with local school districts. I know you have meetings monthly with superintendents.
Right.
But it seems that you seem to be reluctant to want to move forward with cooperative type of programs, whether it be, whatever they might be. Can you give an example?
For professional development, I gotta say, we have an amazing cooperation. We have,
All right.
it's really nice.
Yeah,
I mean, we can always do more, that's why it's on there. I think adding the college in there was a good point. I think it'd be great if we could do some of these things with the local districts and include a college.
The spirit behind this, Joe, this is a good point that you're raising. The question, this is what we're talking about, I think. The thing that we do today, we do essentially 2 things today. We have the sort of superintendent's forum, administrative forums, etc., right? Usually at the county level that we participate in. That's the thing you were referring to. The second thing that we do is we have the North Essex Professional Development Consortium that we founded, right? And that's got a couple of districts in it. However, what this is saying is, hey, that thing has worked so well, why not expand it in 2 ways? One way is the colleges and universities aspect of it. And another way is, why we limit it to physically close, approximate districts like Glen Ridge, who are terrific partners in many things. Why is Berkeley Heights not somebody that a district that we partner with? Right there on our district list, and I'm sure there's lots of things we can share with them. Again, challenge for Mr. Miller is, one of the things we talked about a lot is when we do these sorts of things, it bears a lot of fruit. Sometimes it takes a year or two to get going. And the message here was, do more of it, because when you do it, it seems to give big rewards.
Yeah, I'm in a professional development with Montclair State University right now at my job, teaching at Avon Ave and or at Brick. And it is, I walked out of that this year and I suggested to the team in Newark, who leads Newark, I said, can Montclair State just run all your PD for the district?
This was the new school. And
Yeah.
professional development there that was partnered up with Montclair University.
It wasn't, Montclair offered a partnership.
You know,
So I just took advantage of it with two other colleagues, and it is some of the most enriching
Yeah.
work I've ever done.
So that was
it's a no-brainer.
Can we expand more what we do?
Well, can you expand it to the student level? I mean, can we think about?
Yes, so there's another strategy, one of the earlier ones was talking about those internship and other career sort of experiences. That's definitely anything that would constitute that would be in play.
Strategy 5 pretty much deals with staff, PD. It's professional development of staff, but just so the board knows, I mean, I love getting involved with the colleges. I mean, that's really how the NJIT thing started, because we wanted to implement the STEM, push STEM into it. So I said, well, NJIT's 10 miles away. Why don't we take a trip down there? A byproduct of that relationship became the computer science dual enrollment class. That wasn't the real beginning of it, though. The beginning of it was this PD. And to your point, Mr. Quattrochi, Mr. Miller and I today discussed how we wanted to be involved with Berkeley Heights and New Providence. We had a discussion about it today. And I have talked to the Berkeley Heights superintendent, but also the New Providence superintendent on a few things. And they're in our comp group, as you know. And New Jersey Monthly Magazine, however you want to take it, whatever you take it for, they were ranked #1. And let's always go after and see what other people are doing.
See what they're doing, the kids that have the same DNA as the students in Verona. There's no difference. The demographics are the same, the size of the school is the same.
Very similar. It's a very similar town. I lived there before. It's a lot like this town. So strategy number 6, provide upgraded, sustainable buildings, grounds, and technical infrastructure. Number 1, ensure that the district technology infrastructure and tools are current and sustainable to realize 21st century learning environment and meet state of New Jersey technology requirements through the development of an actionable long-term funded technology plan.
And the word funded here, again, to the point earlier, means have a plan for how you would fund it, ideally, right? It doesn't mean that everyone's going to vote yes for it, but you should have a plan that we should put in front of the public.
Number 2, improve energy efficiency and reduce utility costs. So I think that's like we said, it's a two-pronged attack. One is let's bring down our costs by using less, but let's also bring down our costs more by paying less for the less stuff that we're going to use, if that makes sense. So one of the things was the ESIP program. The other thing was using those reverse auctions for electricity. Now I know that didn't save a lot of money, it saved $5,000, but it was $5,000 that we didn't pay PSE&G, and the lights are still on.
Right, but I would say that it didn't save a lot of money yet.
Right,
It couldn't. We just did the first facet of it because we had there was a consideration on how much we could put out to bid. Right, exactly.
So I think it's a future thing that we'll build, like just on everything. Like the outside revenue was $107,000. I mean, I'm not one of those people that's going to be happy with $107,000. That sounds nice. I'm always going to want to do more. So it's the same kind of idea with this. If you can save $5,000 on that, maybe we can save $5,000 on something else, and it adds up to an iPad card or some new computers for the library, or whatever it is. Sometimes it's important to, because when we get so bogged down with this 32 million. But if you say, well, this is 15,000, that's enough to outfit this library here with some wireless devices. That it puts the like material with the number. So the 5,000s and all that, it's not that big of a deal. But when you add them up, maybe you'll do some of these other things.
Yeah, I think to your point, some of the most transformative actions in schools doesn't come from just the generic 30 million. It comes from that idea that a teacher has or a student has that they believe in wholeheartedly. They implement with maybe $500, $1,000, or $2,000.
Right.
I kind of think that's what you're speaking to.
Sure. And, you know, another piece of this is that improve not an improved relationship with VC, I don't mean that, I mean, maybe an improved way that we're looking at the funding of VC by some other different sources that we never did before, because all the money from VC comes right back. One of the things you just brought up, the reason why this struck a chord with me is, I know your son is involved in this, was the music, the outside composer. I think, was your son involved in it, or no, or was in the planning stage? But the outside composer that came in and worked with HPW, that's something like you said, it wasn't like, you know, $1 million, it was about $6,000, and it made a huge impact on our students and a large group of students. And it's something they'll never forget. I mean, that's a great opportunity. So anytime we can try to offer VC money through other sources, I think it's important.
I think the high school band, there was a composer that wrote a piece that the high school band was the first band to debut the piece, and they did it at Carnegie Hall, and he was there.
Wow.
To a standing ovation. Those are the sorts of things in the experiences that.
Those are experiences that kids will never forget.
I think that naturally some of these revenue streams are going to merge with VP down the line. We do have a seat with VP that we don't currently implement. Maybe we should consider that.
We don't have a what? I'm sorry?
We have a seat with
Well,
VP
Mr. Forte,
for the board. It's called
We,
one board member is the.
well, the board,
We opted not to.
board took a vote not to.
Yeah, I adopted it how many years ago. But I think that naturally that's going to merge because as we look to make this revenue stream sustainable 5, 10 years down the line, ultimately, unless it's you 15 years from now, which it could be, right? Who knows? We need to make sure that continues. Or as you bring on new revenue streams, that other revenue streams that maybe VP or would then take over. Who knows? But I think as VP's raising funds and as we're raising funds, it's going to have to be talk between them, so to say.
One of the things, just so the board knows my thought process on this, the VP versus money coming into the district directly, donations, I wanted to go through VP. Services, in other words, we're providing some service and they're paying for that service, like the advertising comes directly to us. And the reason why I bring this up is when I had my meeting with the realtors the other day, I had 2 sponsors in there. One of them was a person who owns a insurance agency, State Farm Agency in Caldwell. The other one was a mortgage broker in Fairfield. The mortgage broker, after speaking to him, he wants to get his foot in the door in Verona and offered to donate $1,000 for every time someone from Verona uses his mortgage service. So right now, I presented that to VP. I'm waiting for them to get back on me if it's something they're interested in doing. So,
Especially when you consider that every year, a good economy or bad economy, booming economy or crushed economy, in Verona, we sell about 200, 280 homes per year. Imagine if a third of those homes use the same broker for $1,000 each donation.
it could lead to some more substantial money. That's the point. There's potential there. How's that? I think that's the potential.
Yeah, just being strategic about how we think about the relationship that we're
Right.
building.
And I would love to be able to I'd love to be able to get a steady revenue stream for VP. And I really I feel like the donation part should go to VP. Does that make sense?
Well, the donation part to VFE is a tax deduction for the donor. If it comes to us, it wouldn't be a tax deduction. And also, I know that for folks who donate where their employer may gift match, some employers will double. So if you donate $500, your employer may donate, put $500 more on top of that. You can't get that if it comes directly to us.
So once again, just something to consider as we think
Sure.
about it strategically.
The only other thing I could add to that is, again, falling back on experience, and as you well know, is that try and find a revenue stream from something that we can retain 100% of, something that doesn't go into the general fund, which is subject to a lot of restrictions and uses. Something, and again, you're familiar with the after-school program
Right.
in the district, where all that money went directly to an enterprise fund controlled 100% by the district. It can be used for anything we so choose without having it fall into the general fund. Those things are double in value because you get to keep it all.
Right.
You can spend it on whatever you the board feels it can.
Yeah, Joe, that's a good point. The Action Committee on Finance talked about that specifically and left it as part of the administrative implementation. When you come up with a sustainable plan, part of that could be, and you can have more than one enterprise fund. I'm not
Yes,
saying you can have an
Yes.
enterprise fund for technology, an enterprise fund for something else, whatever, right? However you designate, sort of like a Christmas club sort of accounts, right? And you deposit the money in it as you raise the revenue somehow. Yeah, that was part of what they talked about too. That's it.
Mr. Forte, could you update the screen?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry about that. Number 2, we did. Number 3, enhance the safety and security of the school facilities.
This we talked about as part of the bonding.
So we can skip that. Increase the district operations budget and spending in line with the state median to ensure long-term sustainability and enable cyclical replacements and upgrades. This basically means that we need to have enough money in the actual operating budget to cover some repairs that aren't huge capital projects like repairing a football field, replacing a football field, but rather like screening the gym floors and things like that, making sure there's enough money in the budget to do those things as well. And then the last one is fund ongoing capital improvements. Questions about number 6?
So for tonight, we need to, actually, one other thing, you want to go to do you have the rest of this, the action plan examples?
No, not with this. Not with this.
So what we need to do tonight is either tweak it or change it or agree to the plan, because there's a resolution to accept it or adopt it. And now in terms of setting our goals, if there's anybody who wants to change anything, it's time to talk about it. Otherwise, it seems to be focused enough on the things that we all have talked about a lot, and it articulates it pretty well, I think. The next thing is to set our annual goals. We typically have 2, 3, maybe 4 is the highest we would have in terms of annual goals. The suggestion that I have for that is that we have 3 goals, and the 3 that I would propose are, number 1, execute year 1 of the plan. And I'll get to that in a second, what that would mean. Number 2, because it is distinct as something that we need to do, is execute or prepare and execute our facilities referendum. Facilities and technology referendum is probably better said. And number 3, because it was so important that it came up in a couple of different committees as part of the strategic plan, is to develop a more complete communication standard for the community on how we can improve how the board gets its message to the community. Right? And that could be a whole series of things, from how we prepare and send out press releases to the local media, to how our website is organized, to how the Friday folder works, to how we submit maybe a monthly update article to the papers or post online, whatever the case may be. Right?
I think 1 and 2 are just, it follow from what we've done in previous years. I mean, with the year we had the referendum, that was certainly.
Because it's a distinct thing, you have to.
Yeah, we have to do it. It's in a lot of things.
Right.
A lot of things are going into that
Yeah.
over the course of time. 1, we need to do as well. I mean, if we did, honestly, if we did those 2 this year, I think we'd successful year.
That's fair. Well, like I said, the communication one permeates throughout.
It does.
It
That's what I'm kind of thinking. There's components with it elsewhere. I mean, we can identify it as such, but I don't know if we're going to have the bandwidth and support is going to bandwidth to develop a cohesive communication plan with everything else going on.
So if you go back in your handout to strategy number 1, maybe you can back up this to the strategy.
Yeah, we just got to identify what we want
Right.
to do as year 1.
So without, if I suggest we leave off whether we would actually complete many of these in the first year as opposed to at least begin working on them. So on strategy number 1 around the financial resources, develop a sustainable financial plan. That's something that we probably would do well to get down on paper. Like how would we, like what are the elements, Glenn, that we would say we need to make sure that we've got covered somehow? Is it 3 elements? Is there 5 elements? Should we have an enterprise fund or a series of enterprise funds that we could define? What would it take to get as a byproduct of the engineering work, what would it take to get a multi-stage, maybe each stage is 3 years apart, maybe it's 5 years apart, multi-stage plan around, gee, if we accomplish what we set out to accomplish in the current referendum, what would the next referendum and the one after that entail? What would they look like, That's what result number one talks about. Result number two is something we're already doing, that Mr. Forte is doing, so you could probably continue that one as well. Right? Continue to look for our alternate sources of revenue. And number three is also something that we're doing. So for strategy one, for year one, we would either begin or continue the work that we're doing on results 1, 2, and 3. Right? On strategy two, the first two of these things, the first two of these we've talked about many, many times. And I think at the last meeting when you did the HIB update, you talked about at least number one, to inventory. If you have a loose inventory, if you have an inventory of all the work that we do around this space in terms of culture and student awareness and all the rest, by title of what we do, but not necessarily what does each program mean. Right? Is that the kind of thing that we can tackle this year? Right? It sounds like it would be. Right? So let's understand all that we're doing and start to begin to plan for what we would change in the myriad of programs that we have around student culture. Right? If we could do more, by all means, if we start to embody the values, which is what number 3 talks about, that's okay. You can always do more, but at least at a minimum, let's at least knock number 1 out. That seems to be fairly distinct that we could, in the course of a year, we could probably do. On number 3, the first 2 of these, expand the options for seniors for a wider array of authentic experience. Again, you've got some efforts on this that have started, so that I think is in play. We're already having started. Yeah, and the community services requirement, you guys had some great ideas on that. That shouldn't be too difficult to get up off the ground, at least to start to put a framework in place on how that would work. So Glenn, things like the Eagle Scouts or Boy Scouts count. Yeah, it should. There's a youth group at the local church count. Yeah, probably should. What are the different ways that we can begin to recognize what the students are doing and make sure that we have the right experiences for them? Joe, your point is going to be not only community service, but experiences that are career-oriented, right? And internship-based, which I think we all agree with. So it sounds like number 1 and number 2, we kind of already have some movement on, right? Right. I would suggest those are 2 candidates. On number 4 and number 5, number 4 is our curriculum, number 5 is our PD, and all of these arguably are already in play or soon to be started, like the STEM effort. And I would say for these, let's turn it over to Mr. Miller, a little bit of a baptism by fire, but hopefully is there anything here that's making you want to lose your lunch? No. All right, so David, advocacy at its best, so it's all you, type it in there because it's all yours. So number 4 and number 5, I think for word is, what's the year 1 plan around all of that? Right, and I think you can lay that out. I think Mr. Drew gave you a whole bunch of stuff to hit the ground running. It should be fairly consistent. That's right. And number 6, I think it's probably result 1, 2, and 3 that have some degree of movement in it, given the engineering that we're doing, the bonding, the energy efficiency and reducing costs is something that's perpetual, and the safety and security of school facilities. A big part of the bond is going to be around to security, right? That's part of the justification for doing it. So if we said year 1 of the bond, if we said goal number 1 was execute year 1 of the plan, and year 1 of the plan included for each of the strategies those things that we're sort of already carrying, that's a lot for us to.
Year 1 sounds pretty aggressive.
Right, but I would argue that a lot of these are probably going to go into year 2.5.
Okay.
Right?
Right, so it's an ongoing thing. We're not going to measure ourselves. That's, I guess, is that okay?
It's not.
Are we okay at the end of, we're sitting here in 2014 saying, well, we made progress toward these goals. And
I think we should be, because I would use the academic ones, like the assessment one. I don't think any person believes that in 1 year we would develop and implement standard assessments for every grade level across the district and get it done in 12 months.
And thinking back over the last 9 times I've done this, there's been many times we've had goals go for many years.
Correct. So now our job is to say those are the goals. Then the administrative team will come back with the action plan. So Mr. Miller, I'm sorry to pick on you, but you're the new guy. This is part of the rush night. plan. So what's gonna happen is you'll come back with an action plan from Mr. Forte that says, in year one, we will have assessments in these courses or these parts of the curriculum in these grade levels by the end of this year. Right, that's the action plan that you'd see. And then
Right, yeah.
we take that and say, okay, good, and that should all come up through the committee reviews, consistent with the policies and the governance, monthly updates to track progress, and we should stay focused on it. That's the whole sort of thesis behind it. Does that make sense to?
No, it makes sense. I think it's good. I think, given what we're talking about, I'm comfortable with two goals. And having that communication aspect, that can be, tactics that really go through the, that Mr. Miller sort of just put into the bus and comes back with us and says, here's what I think we can accomplish that.
So there's one other thing that we need to do, and I would suggest that we get 2 board volunteers, preferably out of you 3 guys. So, so we need to go off and work with Mr. Forte for September to set his superintendent's goals that are part of his contract for the 13-14 year, right? So we have in review of the goals that we set last September that he had updated us on. We just need to do a new set of goals. So, okay, good. So I was going to suggest Mike. So thank you very much, and Glenda did it. So by September we'll have some goals back to the board. So here's what the new goals.
I have one question on, and I don't know if this is going to be shut down or not, but I wanted to propose it. Honestly, the first 2 I had on my list too on Evernote. There was one though that I thought we might consider adopting. I don't know if it's appropriate to put in this part of goal setting or not, but I know this year we weren't really conducting as many quarterly retreats. I know that we don't necessarily update ourselves or take joint trips down to NJSBA training or whatnot, but maybe a goal around board professional development and growth in a sense, so that we are just being cognizant of holding ourselves to a high standard and see even something as like seeking the distinctions just on the NJSBA website for training that's completed, just being aware of how we're messaging ourselves as an effective and qualified board. So
Well, a lot of that now is regulated. We have a lot of requirements on the training. But one thing you said at the very beginning that I think does make sense is what we used to do, and this became problematic from a sunshine law purpose and trust that there was no nefarious intent. It was just an interest of time, where we would, every quarter, we had a different, we divided the district, Mr. Forte, into 4 elements. Buildings and grounds was one element, curriculum was another element, technology was a 3rd element, buildings and grounds, curriculum, technology, I forget what the 4th one was. And finance, right, was the 4th one. And what we did is we had sort of a super update meeting once a quarter on one of those things. So we still had the public sessions and all, but once a quarter we did a mini offline board retreat where we had, for example, when it came to curriculum, Ms. Jewett would come in and we'd go through all the gory detail of what we wanted to go through. And we'd sometimes be in there for 3-4 hours at a time to go through it all. Mr. McDivitt would come in and give us a perspective on how things are going overall. The reason why we stopped them is because A, they were so long, which was a good thing because they were meaty, but to do them in public was sort of difficult and challenging logistically and all the rest. I think what we ought to do is maybe pick a meeting every quarter where we start at 7 instead of 8, and that first hour would be Mr. Miller comes in and publicly, let's go through how we're doing on his part of the element of the plan. Mr. McDivitt do curriculum one. We did it for like 2.5 years quarterly, and it worked out. I think it worked out great. I mean, back then we used to have binders full of updates. And
Some of the districts are calling that state of the building.
correct,
State of the
right.
curriculum.
We just need to do it in public and maybe limit it to an hour or something,
Yeah.
7 to 8 o'clock hour, and I think that would be good.
Well, why don't I look at our board schedule for next year and put them on the calendar?
Yeah,
This is the day that we'll do curriculum, this is the day we'll do goals.
And those meetings, like I said, we probably should dedicate an extra hour early start
If
time.
you want to start, then that means that, all right, so you do it on the day where there's no curriculum, where there's no committees.
No committees, right.
But that would mean that people would have to be here for 6 for the private,
Depending on how we shuffle the agenda.
unless you want to do the private.
We can do the private after.
Sure.
Depending on the
Sometimes
agenda, if it's, Is everybody okay with that? Does that make sense, right? Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
that's definitely a suggestion. And then just being cognizant of, I know we want to improve communication with the public and such. If we're not adopting necessarily a professional development goal for board members, just being cognizant of how we're going to weave those goals of our board into the next 5 years, next year of our leadership, because we'd like to increase our outreach. Some boards open up Twitter accounts. That's great, but what's the purpose? What's the meaning? You know, I mean, that's what we got to ask ourselves. But having that discussion or having that focus would either, in my opinion, require a board goal to say we're going to focus on development of our board, or just be cognizant of during quarterly retreats picking a board development topic to discuss during that time. So one or the other, you know.
Why don't you come up with, maybe come up with a couple of examples on how that we can talk about it next meeting.
So we're gonna set the superintendent's goals later,
Yep.
unless you want to talk about some of these other things now. Just this year, this current year, we had our strategic goals, which were the district goals.
Yeah, I think what we've talked about best is just have the district goals and the superintendent.
And then we're not, so this year we had 3 sets of goals, we're gonna go to
Yeah,
2.
we're gonna go to two because
Yeah,
in the
that's
past,
usually done.
this year was a sort of transition, where we never really had superintendent
Right.
goals before, and that kind of bumps up.
I agree.
We found ourselves challenged on, gee, like,
And they're all overlapping, right?
correct, so
So I
just
think
keep
two
those
is fine.
district goals, merit goals, it's nice and clean.
Good. Good for that?
All right, next on the agenda, we have a Buildings and Grounds Committee update.
We do. Buildings and Grounds did meet this evening, and as I discussed at the last meeting, the focus of this, and this will be, this is one of the reasons we're going to go to the meetings that, instead of every other board meeting, during every board meeting, so we can spend time discussing just referendum items, which we did. So really what it comes down to is we're really bumping up against that September 4th submittal to the DOE, to be considered for either the grant or for debt service, and we're still looking towards
That was the
grant.
topic,
Right.
we have to decide that by September.
Yeah, we have to decide which way it's going to go when it's the application, but the 4th is the deadline. So we're moving along pretty well on discussing items for inclusion, because that's really been developed out of the plans we've been looking at for years now. So we're looking at other items that maybe should be included, and what we want to have shortly, and we're going to probably have to get together. We know we're at least get together as a committee and maybe as a board before the 30th, just to ratify what we want to include in our submission. So what we're working on now is getting the dollar amount, so we know where that builds up. So that's really kind of where we're at. We have our list. We know what we'd like to have in it. Now, what does that add up to? Does that make sense? And is that palatable to the board members? And that's moving along real well. Where we are going to be really under a lot of pressure to get this done by the 4th, September 4th, is around the football field. We really need to have that in at the same time. So it's not, we don't have the ability to say we're going to submit our plan for that later on. So French Corallo is working on that. We have a proposal for the historic field delineation and soil sampling. That's for $12,800. I think that's on the agenda for tonight, correct? Right. So that's on the agenda for tonight to approve. And after they finish that work, they're going to, our plan is to hand that off to EI, for EI to run with it and get together our proposal, finished proposal. Now, I'm going to be honest, French and Corallo has not always, in my opinion, been the quickest to deliver us the reports that we need. They seem rather slow in the fall, and it's due to some other aspects. And I know that if you ask them, there's going to be mitigating circumstances as to why that occurred, but the end result is that we're going to need this by a certain date. And Mr. McDevitt is meeting with EI to determine what that date is for the handoff. And we've asked that we create a calendar working backwards from that September 4th date, from a project management perspective, to say these are the milestones that we have to hit in order to stay on track for the September 4th deadline. So the committee's going to be monitoring that closely. I know Mr. Forte and Mr. McDivitt are monitoring that, and Ms. Arpino will be monitoring that closely as well. We are confident we can hit the dates, but it's going to take a lot of eyeballs on that to make sure nothing falls through the cracks before that. We do need to make sure that occurs.
So tonight we have the French Perillo resolution. And then resolution number 45 is for EI proposal for mechanical assessment
Right.
at Verona High School. That was the second part of a work.
Right, so that's like looking at the boilers and see what our needs are around that.
This is consistent with this is the piecemeal,
Yes.
not, I don't make it sound negative.
No.
This is the piecemeal, say, okay, now go finish this, okay.
Yeah,
now
because
go
we
to
had the
next
security
stage.
portion of it, we had different portions of it.
So
This is the
part-
mechanical portion.
So when will this be done?
I don't remember what you guys said on that. Sooner than the French Perot, it will be done with it.
They said they would have that, back to us in time. They told us that our time frame right now is very good. I asked them specifically, how's it look?
I'm just trying to get my, yeah, no, I got that, that's perfect. I'm
When's
trying to get my bearings. Right.
Yeah,
Maybe you can send that a note on what do you
Yeah.
expect to hear?
we need to have this so that we can go through and say, we want to include this, and this, right? We need to understand what our needs are and what it's going to be, so, in July.
Well, you know, John, what we told Paul McDivitt to go off and do is contact all these professionals and put a timeline together.
Exactly.
So that's gonna come.
This way we have a sense of, on the 30th, we're walking into a meeting to get an update on
Right,
whatever.
right. And it may require us to meet before then, as just to,
We might have that.
like, the committee will most certainly meet before then.
Okay.
We may have to, there's a possibility we have to vote on something before the 30th. But we only need 3. I think that's it. Anything else?
The only thing was, in talking about that rod grant, I wondered if we could make that decision tonight, if we were gonna go down that road, or is that something we still wanna wait on?
I think that the committee's comfortable with saying we'd like to proceed with the rod grant.
That's the September 4th.
That's the September
This
4th,
just helps.
instead of debt service. So what that'll do, so say we came up with a number of 12 million, and we got 3 million, that brings down the number for the taxpayer, so we put that there.
I'm in favor of this.
Yeah, I mean, I had a chance to read through it online and such. I can send you information even to send you to it.
That's 4.
So,
Okay, good.
That was the superintendent report? Is that, I'm sorry, is that?
No, so it's moving quickly, and we hope to have more details on what the cost breakdown is going to be in the Senate July.
Okay, so I have a couple items because I spoke for a while, right? Number one, graduation's this Friday, June 21st, 9:30 for the middle school, 6:30 for the high school at Colwell College. Last day of school is June 21st. First day of school is September 3rd for staff, and first day for students is September 6th. And I just want to bring up and highlight what a big accomplishment that was, that our girls' teams won the SEC Conference Award. It brought back a great memory of mine when I was a coach at Glen Rock High School, and we won the ShopRite Cup for all the schools in the state. And I know, 2 of my championships that I coached were part of it. I mean, when he showed me the cup, it really hit home. That's a great accomplishment to be, compared with every school in the county, and to be the #1 school based on a set criteria that everybody has to follow. That's a pretty amazing accomplishment. So I really wanted to highlight that during my report, just to say 2 things. One is it's a great thing for Verona, and it reminded me of that great feeling I had when I was part of that ShopRite Cup.
I just have a quick question on the Colwell graduation. I have to ask this question. So as a board member, we don't get paid, you get no benefits or anything, but you do get one perk as a board member. There's only one thing that you get as a board member, that is you get a parking spot at graduation.
One year we didn't get that, I do remember that day.
It was the year that I said to the police officer at the end of the street, the Board of Ed, they have a spot, and he said, okay, go around the corner.
I was with you that day.
He wouldn't let us in. And it was 2 of us in the car at the same time. But, so at Colwell College, there's ample parking for everybody. There's air conditioning, there's, right. Sure.
my first year when I was coming up as a for graduation, and I said, oh, I'm a board member. And then we have a guy here, he's getting one of the units as a board member. A little young, I thought. Let's go park on the street.
In the summer, we voted to move the graduation to Colwell College. I was talking about this with the administration. We're like, watch it be like 75 degrees and breezy that day. You know what the forecast is?
80 and breezy.
So, but I think it's going to be a great thing. I know it's going to be a great thing for our students.
All right, let's do resolution.
Before you do resolution, I just have one comment, please. About a year or so ago, I made a comment on the family moving out of town, the Wisda family. Mr. Edward P. Wisda was a member of the Verona Board of Education in a very tumultuous time. In the middle 60s and the height of the civil rights movement, the Verona Board of Education voted to bus in students from Newark to vacancies that they had in our school buildings. And Mr. Wisda was a part of that Board of Education. A very courageous decision in a very tumultuous time. But unfortunately, Mr. Wisda, I have to report the passing of Mr. Wisda, was 89 years old, and our respects go to his family and his surviving wife. And we should all have the courage that Mr. Wisda had to make a decision like that at a time like that.
Well said.
Thank you.
Okay, so resolutions?
Okay, on the reorg ones, we just want to do that, so I can
Yeah.
sign. The only thing that I have to note is on number 20, 21, and 22, that should be 2012, 2013 school years change, so we'll fix that.
Should be 13, 14.
I mean 13, 14, right. 13, 14.
I know that, there's discussion.
No, resolve that the board approve resolutions number 1 through number 22.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mr. Lino, seconded by Mr. Lee. Any questions, discussion?
Yeah, so I do enjoy my time in community resources. I would like to consider moving to education.
Why don't you,
For next year.
so why don't you, we can make that change at any time of year. So why don't you call Dawn and see if she'd like to just swap with you? If she says, yeah, great, then we'll just announce it, we just do it the next meeting.
Did you happen to notice number 3? We have you as the delegate.
Yeah, I'll give my annual plug, so long as it does not interfere with the normal workings of the teaching day, I will be there.
Mr. Elliott?
Aye.
Mr. Bolino?
Yes.
Mr. Yunus?
Aye.
Mr. Quattro?
Aye.
Okay, and these, do we want to do them by committee or?
Now, we can just, it's just the time, we can just go forward.
Okay. Resolve that the board approve resolutions number 23 through 58 and addendum resolutions 1, 2, and 3.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Lino, seconded by Mr. Yunus. Any questions? Just want to point out on resolution number 29, the majority of that list of salaries is contractual. We just have to do a public resolution, but these are agreed to in contract. The ones at the bottom are non-union staff that we have to annually renew, as well as the resolutions for Ms. and Ms. Skinner.
And I'd just like to make a comment on number 46 and my annual complaint that we were talking about for out of state, or out of town tuition.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right.
Let's call the roll.
Mr. Elliott?
Aye.
Mr. Bolino?
Yes.
Mr. Yunus?
Aye.
Mr. Quattro?
Aye. Okay. All right, let's go to any public comment or questions.
Who's last? I'm still here. You held out at the end.
In regard to the 5-year plan of Albion 15 Howard Street, there were strategic goals that were put on the screen. And I do have a problem. I talked with Mr. Yunus about it. I don't know, did you discuss this with anyone?
Yeah, I discussed it with Liz, and we had a good conversation. I brought it up with Mr. Quintucci as well. So you want me to speak to the points a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
So in the strategic plan, one of the points that Mr. Gio brought up as other goals, it states that all students articulate and embody our core values, all students, and their word all is before each of the words. Now there's two directions that goal setting can take. One is the philosophy, which is within this one, within this strategic plan, which states our strategies further define how we measure those goals. The other philosophy is that the goals themselves should be worded with a clarity of language that states that they are achievable, measurable, and ambitious. And in terms of that clarity, when it says all students, the perception might be if one student didn't achieve that, then we didn't meet our goal. But our strategies and results help us to, one of the points from this duet was that the strategies and results help us to differentiate that success and that measure within our district. Does that kind of clarify a little bit?
So basically,
I prescribe more to the Teach for America way, which is the goals themselves should be worded. This has become a teacher too, and this you're a teacher of many, many years. So my inclination is the goals themselves should be worded in a way that are achievable, measurable, and ambitious. And it's just because that's where my mindset is as well. The steering committee also had an in-length discussion about it, and they chose to stick with all in it as well.
okay, well,
So, I'll just add a little bit of that. The goals that you're referring to, those 4 goals,
right.
those are the strategic plans, aspirational goals. That's what we're setting as our target, right? The achievable goals, the ones that you say, hey, how do we count the numbers and all of that, those are the strategies and the results that we talked about. So when the committees met, the action committees and the steering committee for the strategic plan, we did spend some bit of time on whether it should say all or most students or percentage of students or 80% of students. There were variations on that. The consensus was, no, let's go for all with the understanding that we differentiate already, or there's a lot that we do to differentiate and target different students. When we talk about, for example, students who graduate high school with a thoughtful plan for the future, everyone should have a plan for the future. The plan might be college, the plan might be to go to work, the plan might be to go to the military or to travel or to do a skip year or whatever the case may be. But the aspiration is that every student is going to graduate here with some plan on what they're going to do next, not graduate sort of without aim.
Okay, I understand that position, and I expressed that with Mr. Yunus. I talked with him on the phone extensively about this, but I have, in my background, in my training, is not to use the word all, because all you have to do is have one student. Now, if these are just lofty goals and you're not going to measure them.
Correct. We're not going to measure them in the absolute like that. We'll
Okay,
measure them and
they're
say,
not-
are we making progress?
Okay,
Are
but-
we
but you-
achieving them broadly? The reality is, one of the things that we're faced with all the time, and you know this when you're teaching, is, of course, and as a parent even, there are lots of things you simply, we cannot control a student, for example, that refuses to do his or her homework and whose parents find that totally acceptable. You cannot change that, right? You can holler and scream about it, but that won't change it. And if that student doesn't perform and doesn't grow academically because of it, well, the question for us is, have we done everything that we could about it? And if the answer is yes, and sometimes that's just going to be an unfortunate outcome for students.
Right, no, but I look at goals, I guess I take Michael's, the teacher's viewpoint that you should be able to, I don't want 1 or 2 students to say, oh, we didn't meet that goal. But if these are just general stated goals, not to be measured, then I would have to accept it. I don't care for it, but I would rather just drop the word all and say the students can or the students will, and just whatever else the statement said. I think that, I personally feel that would be more effective. But if the committee had considered that, as long as that, if you're going to try to measure it, that you're setting yourself up for failure. And I just, that's what I was just saying.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, when I say we're not going to measure them in the absolute, like we wouldn't measure them saying that every single student have a plan. The point is all the students have a plan where there could be a plan. Some students are going to have personal situations where there's reasons to conclude that. Right?
Okay, as long as they know that they gave it thought and that's what they did. Really feel that.
There was a lot of thought on a couple of things. That was one. And a lot of thought on the values as well, while we're at it, was another one where, as we stated the values that we believe are important characteristics for our school culture. Then we had a lot of dialogue about, well, gee, can you impose those values on someone else? Right? You get into that debate. And after about 40 minutes of going through, because there was a lot of time that we spent on that, the consensus was, well, you know what? We're not going to impose it on you, but we have every right to say there's an expectation of behavior when you set foot here, just like there would be anywhere else in life. So I don't need you to exhibit the values when you go home, or what you do with your little sister and brothers is up to you. But when you're here, here's how we conduct ourselves, which is consistent with our policies and handbooks and all the rest of it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anyone else? All right, our next meeting, as of now, we may schedule another impromptu meeting depending on what Buildings and Grounds has to deal with. But the next meeting is July the 30th. Confidential session is at 7:45, but I think we changed that to 7 p.m. Right, we did something now. So we have a confidential session at 7 p.m. on the 30th of July. Public session at 8 o'clock. Okay? Thank you.
Good night.